Welcome to Seasons of Life, a biblical perspective for how to navigate life's ups and downs. Do you feel overwhelmed? Or do you feel successful? Experiencing loss? This weekly 15-minute word of inspiration will motivate you to live with more wisdom and peace. Here is your host, Pastor Mercy Oduah.
Hello, my Seasons of Life community. I welcome you. I miss you in the last episode. However, I sent a musical inspiration and I hope that you enjoyed that musical inspiration. You know, there are so many ways to convey a message, either by your words or through music. And music is very powerful, it's very soothing. So that was why in the last episode, I sent a musical inspiration, believing that it will benefit you as well. Seasons of life are unpredictable, especially the hard ones. It will hit you like a tornado. But the goal is to discover ways of dealing with the seasons of your life, especially the hard one. Welcome to episode 73 of Seasons of Life, a biblical way of dealing with life challenges. I aim to empower you with spiritual support and guidance that will help you deal with the seasons of your life. I am sharing from my seasons of life experiences, hoping they benefit you. Kindly share on your platforms to encourage someone. I will continue to explore God's and man's ways of dealing with life events. Yes, I just cannot get off from this topic. Why? Because it is one of the keys to your happiness. It is one of the keys to your peace. When you finally discover that your ways are not God's ways and your thoughts are not God's thoughts, you will be able to rest in God. The Bible talks about entering into the rest of God, entering into God's rest. God's rest requires that you discover His ways. You discover His ways, and then you begin to live from that perspective. If you don't discover the ways of God, then you will not be at peace when you deal with life circumstances. I had to learn the hard way because when I lost my son, I was caught up in the ways of man's thinking until the Lord brought me back to the Bible to begin to analyze what I was going through the lenses of His thoughts and His ways. And the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4, really touched me. What did he say? He said, "Count it all joy when you fall into different trials and temptation, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience." Wow! Can you believe that? Count it all joy when you are going through pain. Count it all joy when you are going through trials. That is certainly not the ways of man. Instantly, I discover that God's ways are totally different. God's ways are higher than our ways, as the heavens are higher than the earth. So I began to read and I began to comfort myself. I began to console myself based on God's ways and thoughts. But if you rely on societal influences, on the ways of man to analyze your events, especially the hard ones, you will be discouraged. And this is what the Bible calls the traditions of men, following the traditions of men. So today we are going to look at that. I am excited and I hope you will be. I hope you will gain something powerful at the end of this message. So today my focus is looking at God's ways in comparison with the traditions of men. Looking at God's ways in comparison with the traditions of men. Traditions of men are rules, practices, habits, and customs. Many people, including Christians, have relied on the traditions of men to guide their lives, especially in challenging seasons. We rely on the traditions of men to guide our lives. For example, you might be going through pain and suffering or death or loss or something. And then the tradition will begin to tell you that it's because of what your grandfather did or did not do. You see? And then when you begin to listen to those traditions of men, you are discouraged and your mental health is affected. You do not rely on the traditions of men to analyze your life situation as a believer, as a Christian. No. When you follow the traditions of men to interpret your life event, I tell you, you will find yourself with no power to sustain you. Yes, even Jesus at a time had to challenge the traditions of men in his own time. When you follow the traditions of men to analyze everything that is happening to you, instead of looking into the Bible, I tell you, you will have no power to stand. You will have no power to sustain you. Why? Because the Bible in the book of Mark, chapter 7, verse 13, says that the traditions of men makes the word of God of no effect in our life. Yes, if you analyze your life situation according to the tradition of men, instead of analyzing it in God's ways and thought, then you have no hope. And this will eventually affect your mental state. Traditions are the product of man's thinking and usually very judgmental and condemning. There is no place for mercy as far as tradition is concerned. I am not trying to condemn tradition, but I'm trying to shift your focus as a child of God. I'm trying to shift your focus from traditions to the ways of God. Because in the ways of God, when you analyze and understand the ways of God, you will have peace no matter what hits your life. The ways of God are different from the traditions of men. But when you decide to interpret your situation according to the custom, the beliefs, and the habits of men, which is called the traditions of men, I tell you, you will end up in psychiatric hospital because it is very judgmental. They make you feel hopeless and they make you feel worthless. I know of a woman that has 5 girls, and this woman is maltreated in their family because she didn't have a son. What do you call that? That is the traditions of men. And the traditions of men in that culture says that male children are more significant than female. So this woman with 5 children, 5 daughters, this woman is very miserable. I had to begin to talk to her, to begin to look at herself based on God's thoughts and God's ways, because God is the one that gives children. So it is important for you to understand the difference between the traditions of men and the ways of God. When you do, you will bless yourself. You will honor yourself. You will appreciate yourself. Even though the custom and traditions of men may condemn you, you will know that God's ways and thoughts are not condemning at all. So today we are going to take a very powerful spiritual example to show that God's ways are different from the ways of men. To show that God's ways are different from the traditions of men. And this story is very challenging, very powerful because it overrides the traditions of men. And this story is taken from the book of Numbers, chapter 27, verses 1 to 7. It is a very historical event, the first of its kind, and it affected the nation of Israel even today. What happened in this story? When God delivered the children of Israel from Egypt, God delivered them from the land of bondage, and God took them to the promised land, the land that they were looking forward to. When they got to the promised land, God now wanted Moses to divide, to count the census, to count the census. In other words, take numbers, take inventory of everybody, so that he will be able to divide the land according to family head. So Moses had to do that. But guess what? In this story, there was a man named Zelophehad. And this man named Zelophehad had 5 daughters. And according to the custom and traditions, female are not supposed to own a land. And now this man died. Zelophehad died, leaving no son, only 5 daughters. And now the tradition is telling them that they are not supposed to own a land. And that really, really hurt them. They refused in humility. They did not accept that. So what they did was to go before Moses. They went before Moses, Eleazar the priest, the chief, and the whole assembly of Israel. And they presented their case before Moses. They said, our father died, leaving us with no son, and we are only 5 daughters. We must inherit our father's allocation. We must take over our father's share of land. What did Moses do? Moses went before the Lord. Moses tabled their case before the Lord because it was too much for him. It is just very, very touchy. So God spoke to Moses, and God said to Moses, yes, the daughters of Zelophehad, they are right. Give them the portion of the land. Can you believe that? That is so powerful. So these 5 daughters of Zelophehad inherited their own land, and they broke that tradition. And guess what? A new law in the land began whereby women are allowed to own their own land. This is what the traditions of men can do. You see, the traditions of men wanted to make them miserable. The traditions of men wanted to leave them in poverty. But God's ways are higher than the traditions of men. And God stepped in and intervened and said, no, they are supposed to have the land. And this is what God's way can do. It gives us peace. It shows mercy. It shows grace. But the traditions of men can be brutal sometimes. So what is your takeaway in this story? Because this story is powerful. The takeaway in this story is that traditions of men can keep us in bondage. Yes, it can keep you in bondage. Secondly, the daughters of Zelophehad, the 5 daughters of Zelophehad, refused to be defined by the traditions of men. They moved ahead and they tabled their case before Moses. Also, in this story, the custom of men, the traditions of men, shows no mercy at all. Very judgmental and very condemning. The daughters of Zelophehad found mercy in the ways of God. So as I close, I want you to know that whatever tradition that is keeping you in bondage, you need to break away. Yes, do not allow traditions to make you miserable. Do not define yourself based on the traditions of men. Because if you do, you will end up living a miserable life, a lonely life below the expectations of God. God has great plans for you in his thoughts and ways that are higher as the heavens are higher above the earth. As I close, I want you to meditate on the book of Mark, chapter 7, verse 13, telling you that the traditions of men makes the word of God of no effect in our lives. The traditions of men make the word of God of no effect in your life. Which one do you rather choose? I want you to choose God's ways and thought concerning your life, concerning that situation that you are going through. May the Lord bless you, cause his face to shine upon you, and may the Lord give you the courage to stand alone, even in the face of tradition. Bye-bye, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you for watching this episode of Seasons of Life. Until next time, be well, and may God bless you.